Martin, thank you for joining us today. As an agency, Fabric, we're really good at sharing and creating a voice for our clients, but today's actually around us having a share of that voice and sparking that debate through these interviews.
Do you know what, though? I think you need to kind of pause on that, because I think that is what Fabric do really well. It isn't just about being an agency, in terms of communication and PR. It is about actually challenging the client and thinking differently and using the incredibly developed network you've got and challenging what the industry can do and what the industry needs to do. So thank you for inviting me.
No, you're welcome. So your role as Global Head of Sustainability and Circular Economy at BSI, could you tell me a little about what that entails?
I think sustainability is a really difficult space. It means so many different things to so many different people. And I suppose my job to some extent is about translating that. How do you nurture relationships, and how do we help organisations understand what best practice looks like? Because if we start to look at the role of standards, the role of BSI in that process, it is about helping companies improve by creating new knowledge. It is about giving companies competitive advantage by understanding how they can find efficiency, how they can drive change. But actually, when we talk about sustainability today, it is much, much more than just simply about environmental performance. It is about green finance. It is about social value. It is about maximising the efficiency of assets. It is about stakeholder engagement. It is about shareholders understanding that organisational brands are moving forward in the right way. Sustainability is actually growing in its importance because of the way it's driving change. And that isn't just about environmental performance, that's about social and economic issues as well. So my role really is to kind of enable that and to act as that kind of person to support companies to understand that change, but actually help them understand what we can do to help them through best practice standards.
So I think that's really interesting. I think if you go back maybe 10 years to a definition of sustainability, then to a definition of sustainability today and how much wider and far-reaching it is and how many more facets. Is business on one journey and are consumers on another journey in terms of sustainability? And how far apart are those?
A really good question. I think the important thing that is happening, I suppose, almost as we speak, is the consumer is no longer just the consumer. They are change agents for businesses. They are more inquisitive, they're more connected, they're more challenging in terms of what's the product I'm buying, what does it mean, and how can you help me? The fundamental cornerstone to that is transparency. We as a society are becoming much more transparent, much more informed, and we need to appreciate that. I don't think we've actually been in that same space, but you're right. In terms of your question, the definition of sustainability, I think, is becoming deeper. I think when we look back in the recent past, it has been very much about environmental imperatives. There's a massive conversation going on about social value. So, those conversations alone start to spark people to think differently. And I think one of the fundamental issues which is important for sustainability is innovation. How do you maximise the intellectual capital of UK PLC to drive change? Sometimes it's, how do I get to zero carbon, and people kind of, sometimes take a light touch approach to it, but if you innovate and if you really think in detail of what that looks like and what does that mean in terms of business opportunities, it's a very different conversation. And I think, if we innovate to drive change and if we think about different business models, we can be in a much stronger place.
Later this year, we've got COP26 being hosted in Glasgow. So is the UK using this as a springboard to showcase our innovation and our position in terms of climate change?
There's a lot of things going on at the moment. If we think about the post-Brexit world that we're in, we need to make sure that we're showcasing UK PLC, not just in terms of the targets that are being set, but what products and services do we have as a country that can actually provide us with export opportunities. So I think, COP is an important moment in time, not just to focus our mind in terms of the Paris agreements and a number of other features which will be debated hard around that table. It's about how do we showcase what we're doing now to actually maximise this opportunity. And I think dates always focus people's attention. I know the UK government will be making some strategic announcements around what they want to demonstrate for UK PLC.
So if we look at COP26, there's actually 4 themes this year. So the first one is finalise the Paris Rulebook and resolve issues around transparency.
Yep.
Mobilise climate finance.
Yep.
Help protect communities and natural habitats.
Yep.
And keep a 1.5 degree in reach.
Yep.
Is any one of those more important than others? And then when you mentioned the most important aspect being innovation, does innovation form part of all of those?
It is about reducing our carbon emissions, but actually it's about making sure we have adaptation strategies in place as well. It's about making sure that we really think about innovation. And I suppose what will be important is to have the conversations which is about sector jumps. So how do we get to a low carbon future where we're starting to see electric vehicles and energy supplies being joined up in their conversations? Are we going to see people jumping between sectors because that's where they might see future competitive advantage to be? So you start to see it where Tesla have moved from their automotive space into providing PVs or into providing energy storage for domestic buildings. They've made such heavy investment in their sector. They see that actually to get the true benefit is to actually go and work in other sectors. We will see more disruptors coming into this space who might move things quicker. Working together will be fundamental to drive that change. Those disruptors, but also people realising that maybe organisational growth, companies growing and acquiring new businesses, actually maybe it might be better to take a more collaborative approach and work with different organisations to try and achieve the same goal.
We're relying on our sustainable champions and sort of activists to drive change, and they're just nibbling at the issue. Do we need those controlling the money to get involved?
Certainly, and that's why one of the themes at COP is all about green finance. And already, if you watch the Reef lectures, if you've listened to some of the rhetoric, the market is turning. There is a very clear understanding in terms of why is green finance so important. There's a relationship between brand and what a brand does, risk and investability, and I think that will become a major change driver. I think the Mark Carney quotes from the Reef lectures are as good as that. And that actually, he makes a quote, and I forget which one of the lectures it was in, but he was saying that if you don't understand about sustainability and you're not thinking about your portfolio of investments now, and you're not adapting and changing, you will fail.
It's relatively easy to find examples of zero carbon buildings, but they always tend to be a one-off building or a very small development. They tend to be sort of a landmark. And I almost feel that they're done as a trial. So, we're going to do a small scheme, we're going to monitor it and see what happens. How do we accelerate the uptake on those, and how do we get it sort of more sort of mass market?
I think where we are at the moment is we haven't really driven that change as much as we needed to. And I think there are some pioneers in this space. If we're going to achieve these targets, it is about the technology, it is about good design, so it's about the process, it is about the materials, it's about that all coming together, but actually that is a different space to where some people are at the moment. End of the day, companies don't invest unless they know and have certainty in what they're investing in will actually become the norm. So I think the government has a very strong role to play in terms of setting targets and giving the industry certainty. So we need to make sure the regulatory base lifts as well, the pioneers driving at the front end. So how do we try new things that have been never done before? I did some work a while ago with Bristol, where we were playing with different types of building manufacturers to say, can I build quicker? Can I build more efficiently? And can I actually achieve a position where I'm driving change for the consumer, and to such a point that they will have a low cost or zero bill place to live? That's a powerful place to be. That's joining the environment, the social and governance issue together around sustainability. You have to think about how a component fits into a building, and that building fits into a site, and how that site fits into a neighbourhood, and that neighbourhood fits into a community and in a city.
Are we still setting a bit of a mindset? We've always done it this way, and do we need to change that? And actually some of the entrants coming into those markets, which are businesses or organisations that a number of years ago we wouldn't have thought coming in, will they help add pace to what we're trying to do?
We're going to see a massive change around modern methods. And I think new entrants coming into the market, bringing in new thinking is fundamental. So when you go and talk to, people who are sort of building their teams around off-site, sort of near-site construction techniques, they're looking to the automotive industry. They're not looking to, who can I go and steal from the construction? They're saying, what other industries have done this incredibly efficiently and incredibly effectively? Well, the automotive industry does it. And I think that becomes really powerful because it means that people who are sticking with the way they've always done things will feel challenged, and they will start to say to themselves, have we got it right? If everybody else is changing or people are kind of starting to do things in different ways, what are the benefits? Are they finding more efficiency? Are they becoming quicker? Some really clever ideas and practices coming forward now where, you can do the site preparation, you're not really impacting upon some of the ecology of the site. You're just preparing the slabs and then you're dropping these buildings onto those areas. So therefore, you're getting up quicker, you're making sure that you're seeing that return on your investment quicker. Really clever stuff. And I think that's the stuff that will drive change in the industry.
I mean, there's been talk around Industry 4.0 and where we are now in this new sort of industrial revolution. Digitisation's a big topic that's driving this. Yeah. Where could we be in 10 years' time?
This is a kind of a question the industry really needs to understand. But equally, it isn't just about maybe changing some of our construction processes, it is also about changing our business models. And so Industry 4.0 is really about a radical way of thinking, which is changing how we service our buildings, how we think about our business models. And it's not just about how we construct, it's not even about the products and their life cycle assessment, it is about the fundamental business models which will change the industry.
Does sustainability cost more?
Are we really measuring the true cost of sustainability, or are we just talking about to buy or to make a purchase might be higher, but actually in life cycle terms and in life impact terms, actually I'm giving a better solution?
But do you think that the way that we procure buildings, we're still working in silos where we're looking at the silo there rather than the life cycle cost, we're looking at the cost now rather than the cost over 5, 10, 15 years to the occupier or the owner rather than the person designing and building that building?
We are, and I think this is where we need to be immensely creative. So we know some of the long-term mega trends are around things like dementia. And if we don't actually bake into our design, good design to allow buildings to be adapted for our future needs by keeping people in their homes longer, if we don't design that in from day one, it will have a higher cost. It's all about thinking through our needs as society, our buildings, how they function, and how we need to function in the future, which I think, doesn't add cost, but it does mean we need to put more emphasis back on design professionals to get it right.
The issue is that we are stuck in a mentality of ownership, and all too often we're delivering a building that's not for us, it's for somebody else, and therefore we're thinking about what's in it for me, which is profit on delivering that building, not long-term savings, because that's not savings for me, it's savings for the owner.
So it comes back to this fundamental question, doesn't it? When we understand and we talk about change and we talk about low carbon future and we talk about COP, when we unpick that, we need to unpick it in a way that says the industry needs to change and it can work collaboratively in a collaborative way across the sector. And if you don't, do you know what? You might get regulated hard. Governments across the world are going, we're running out of time, and actually hard regulation might be the only way of actually achieving that.
So if you take that opportunity, and there's one final question for you, going back to COP, if you could see one outcome, one output from COP this year, what would you like to see?
Certainty. And it comes back to a kind of a thread through this whole conversation. To invest, to innovate, to drive change, to take the industry with us, or to leave certain parts of the industry behind, you need certainty of direction. With the pressure on society and pressure on government and the climate crisis that we have, if you get left behind, you probably won't survive.
I think it shows it's a great opportunity at the moment. There's a lot we have to do.
Massive, man.
We've covered a lot in this interview, and thank you very much.
Pleasure.